To paint this beautiful and yet simple watercolor scene, I first used masking fluid to preserve the areas that I don't want to be painted. Masking fluid is actually a liquid latex that is used primarily in watercolor, and the objective is to preserve the white spaces. Once it dries off, it becomes quite rubbery and it can be peeled off easily. So here I'm using masking fluid to represent the snow that's falling off. After giving it about an hour to dry off, as you can see, the color has changed. Now I'm wetting the top half of the scene with clean water. Now I'm going to use the wet and wet technique here. I've used sepia and black, and I'm starting off from the bottom of the horizon line and going to the top. So it leaves a soft blurry end at the end. Since the paper was wet, you can see the colors have merged in, and that's what I wanted it to look like, to give it a very blurry effect. I even sprayed some water on the top. After it was semi-dry, I just applied, in fact dropped in some paint that was sepia and black. All right, I used a tissue paper to cover the lower part, and then using a fine thin tip brush, I'm just making a few trees in the distance, some pine trees. Now, since the paper was slightly wet at this point, or I would rather say damp, where it was damp, the effect is a little blurry, and where the paper was completely dry, you can see the distant branches and trees. Applying a very thin dilute wash of ultramarine blue to give the effect of snow and a slight bit of brown there. Using again a very dark brown that was burnt umber, I've used a thin brush to make the fence. And a few more trees, bare winter trees in the foreground. Using the same color, that's that's burnt umber, I'm painting the hut there that's covered with snow, but the walls and the front part is still not white. Okay, few more bushes in the foreground. Again, a thin brush. I've used very few colors in this painting. Using a paper to give it the effect of the snow and a line from where the branches or the shrubs and the bushes are growing off. A little more blue to give the effect of snow. Yellow in the window to give it the effect of light coming in from the hut. Okay, now that my paper is kind of dry, I'm making some more pine trees in the foreground using black. At this point, the paper is completely dry, so you can see that the paint is not getting it's not giving a blurry effect, because this is wet on dry technique now. I've used a white gel pen to add in a few more fluffs in the snow, completing the wall of the hut. And now peeling off the masking fluid. This should be done when the paper is completely bone dry. Using my white gel pen to add in some more snowflakes, and here my painting is almost finished. Last but not the least, of course, the painting has to be signed.